I'm Sonya Morton Firth and you're tuned in to the Sonya Morton Firth Show. Today my guest is Andy Reid MBE. A war veteran, author, speaker, skydiver, cyclist and charity fundraiser. On the 13th of October 2009, while serving in Afghanistan, he stepped on an IED, lost both his legs and right arm. Since then, he's got married, skydived, cycled from Land's End to John O'Groats and raised a lot of money for charity. This interview shows how an extraordinary man accepts responsibility and refuses to be a victim. Andy, first of all, can I just say thank you very much for coming all the way down. It's because I know you're from up north, I've got to say that. Coming to see me in my home in Richmond. Thank you so much. It's a real honour having you here in my new pad.
Oh, no problem at all. It's fantastic to come down, yeah. Get a bit of a headache sometimes when I come down south.
Do you? But, do you know what? I had a permanent headache for 20 years. It's really nice to hear a northern accent. Whereabouts are you from?
So I'm from St Helens, yeah. A rugby town up north, in between Manchester and Liverpool.
And don't you get people saying, oh, is that Liverpool?
Yeah, so the other week when I was down here and they said, where are you from? I thought, don't say near Manchester because that's on lockdown, so don't be saying that. I thought, it's near Liverpool. But St Helens, it's only a small industrial town, really, coal, glass, rugby league. That's the real game they play up north, not the one they play down here, the rugby union. Yeah, so, you know, yeah, I love it up north, you know. I spent some time based in Warminster, I was near Bath and Salisbury. But when it comes to leaving the forces, I thought I need to go back home to my hometown. That's where I'm from, that's where my family's from. So good to be. And
you're still there, but we're having a brew now in London, and I'm glad you're here. Andy, before, I mean, obviously I want to talk, you've got an amazing life, I'm dying to get into it. But the first question I want to ask you was, why the army? What age did you join, and why did you want to go into the army?
Yeah, so when I was probably about 10 or 11, used to go out to your grandparents' house on a Sunday for Sunday dinner, as you do, and under the stairs there was a little cupboard, and in there was hats and handbags and fur coats, and my sisters used to go in there.
It sounds like The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe.
Yeah, my sisters used to go in there and do whatever the girls do when they're dressing up, but they're quite annoying, my sisters, so I didn't really...
Did they not try and dress you up?
Well, they probably did most of the time, yeah. But I used to go in the cupboard under the stairs and get my granddad's old army jacket, his old army scarf, and run around the garden pretending to be in the army. And then I'd sit down with my grandfather, and he went all the way through the Second World War, and he'd tell me all these amazing stories of his time in the armed forces. And I just thought, when I grew up and become a big boy, I want to follow my grandfather's footsteps and join the army. So from 11 or 12, that was my main goal and aspiration in life, was to join the armed forces. Yeah, so during my time at school, that's all I did. I thought, I want to join the army, so I'll keep myself super fit, play rugby, cross country. I'm not very good at football. Never used to get to pick, really. Or if I did get picked, I ended up in goal. So I weren't very good at football. But anything else, just to keep myself fit. And that was it, yeah. And then I didn't really concentrate very much on the maths and English. I thought it was quite boring. So they asked me to leave school in the third year, which looks a bit better on your CV than being expelled. So I weren't
too concerned. They asked you to leave?
Yeah, they kind of got me.
What did you do? You did something?
We were just disruptive, me and my mate were a bit disruptive, and we were in the same class together, we just messed about all the time. And I only learned years later I was dyslexic, and I missed a bit of schooling when I was young. My mum, we were in a car crash when I was 5, and I bumped my leg in 3 places, and my mum got her ankle crushed. Wow. So I was kind of like passed around the family, so I probably missed the first 6-8 months at school. So that kind of put me on the back foot at school, I think that's what it was about. But it weren't really picked up at school. I think I just thought I was just disruptive and naughty. So they got me and my friend in and went, right, one of you two don't have to leave. So I was like, well, I'll go. So I left and went to a different school closest to where I lived, and just kept up the dream of joining the armed forces, yeah.
And then you made that dream come true? Was it that easy?
Well, no, not really, no. I left school at 16. I went down to the Army Careers Office in St Helens there. It's in the same place, the tax office, so I try and avoid it nowadays. But then I was right keen to get down there. Knocked on the door, big guy comes to the door, big red sash on his chest, a couple of stripes on his arm. I said, all right, mate. I said, I want to join the army. He said, right, well, first of all, don't call me mate ever again. He said, I'm a sergeant. I go, okay, so I'm a sergeant. He said, what regiment do you want to join? I said, I'm not involved, to be honest. I said, what regiment are you in? So I'm in the Queen's Lancashire Regiment, infantry. So that sounds all right. So I'll join them. And he's like, right then, we'll come inside. We have to do a couple of tests. And then it was like a bit of a test on the computer you had to do, then a quick health check. So test the computer, a bit nervous about having not done too well at school, but luckily it was a multiple choice test. So I thought happy days, A, B, C, D, and I got through the test.
Close my eyes, I'll do that one.
And then did the medical, so my height, I was about 5'11" then, I'm about 5'8" now, maybe a little bit smaller, but I'll get cheaper pants, so it's not all bad news really. And then he took my weight and said, yo, Mr. Reid, you're 9.5 stone. I said, yeah, I know, I'm always running around, keep myself super fit.
Yeah.
He said, well, unfortunately, you're underweight for your height.
There's a weight restriction for the army.
The height to weight ratio, yeah. There was back then, you're talking probably 1992, back then, something like that. You know, the army probably weren't recruiting as much as they are now, there's no really conflict on. So he said, you're going to have to go away and put some weight on. So I walked away, very disappointed with myself, very angry at myself.
Well, I guess because you kept yourself fit and probably tried you.
Keep fit, rather than eat chips, I'm going to keep myself fit, you know. So I walked away and I thought, right, what job can I do that's going to get me a bit bigger, get me a bit stronger and achieve that goal of joining the army. So I got a job as a labourer on a building site, did that for a bit. Then I got a job in a sausage factory. that helped. Ideal.
Get some free sausage.
It helped, yeah. And then I got a job as a forklift truck driver and doing 4 days on, 4 days off in a factory in Haydock. Not the best job in the world really, but on the 4 days off, I went to the gym, got a personal trainer, worked really hard. He happened to be an ex-Royal Marine, this guy. I told him I want to join the army, so he said, do this, do this, do this. So I got there, built myself up. It took me till 21, 25 years to be able to achieve that goal of joining the army.
But in those 5 years, if you look back now, do you think that sort of taught you anything? Because I guess it gave you an experience of civilian life if you hadn't have done those 5 years and you'd gone straight to the army.
Yeah, well that's what, when you're on like on exercise in soldier planes somewhere and it's raining and it's freezing and you've just been woke up and you've had like 2 hours sleep or whatever, then other lads are there going, this is actually rubbish. You're like, it's not my mate. No, we're sat in the field, we're getting wet, there's no real enemy coming. No, it could be worse. You could be doing a 12-hour shift in a factory for £140 a week. You know, so the grass isn't always greener. Well, I think a lot of guys who join the army at 16 and that's all they ever know straight from school, a lot of them are like, this is rubbish, this is absolutely, I'm leaving, I'm signing off. Because they think there's something better on the other side, on the other field or whatever. You just give me that perspective that actually, yeah, I'm getting wet and cold. It's an exercise. No one's actually going to come and attack us. And 6:30 tomorrow morning, and next will be finished. We're all back to camp. I'm home for the weekend having beers. Happy days. So I always had that perspective that Civvy Street is hard work. You have got to work hard to pay the bills and earn the money, especially in my position. You left school with like no qualifications. There's limited what jobs you can actually do. And I think if I'd not joined the army, I was getting to the stage where I was chatting to certain people, hanging around with certain people, and I could have gone down that path. So I'm glad that like at 21 I thought, let's I'm going to go for it again. I went down, did the tests and passed all the tests. And yeah, I look back and have no regrets whatsoever about joining the armed forces. It's made me the person who I am today. And some of the experiences that I've had being in the army are absolutely amazing. Obviously, I've been to some countries that are not so great, which we'll talk about, no doubt.
Well, before, because obviously I want to talk about really what happened on that day that changed your life, but before we get there, how was army life before then?
It was amazing. You know, 1999, I climbed Kilimanjaro, you know, third highest mountain in the world. So I read the notice board one day, they wanted 15 volunteers to climb Mount Kilimanjaro. I'm thinking, 18 months ago, I was driving a forklift truck in a factory, and now I'm getting the chance to climb the third highest mountain in the world. And had you been in war zones at this point? I've been 2 years in Ireland. I've just done 2 years in Ireland. 1998, I was over there, so the on one went off when I was over in Ireland. So I was pretty much straight into training. Went from training straight to Ireland. Then a year of being in Ireland, the on one went off. So I was straight into the harsh reality of what could happen during your time in the armed forces. But for, you know, it took me 5 years hard work to achieve this goal. Being in the army, these things are going to happen during my time in the army. So when I put that to one side and carry on working hard and try and get promoted and go up the chain of command. So then when you see, you know, do you want to go and climb the third highest mountain in the world for free? Thank you to the taxpayers. Like, yeah, I'll have a bit of that. So I went over there, you know, a week to get to the bottom of the mountain. Did 5 days up, 1 day down. and then 4 days in Zanzibar, just chilling out on the
Was
beach.
it for charity or for some sort of...
Adventure training.
Adventure training?
Adventure drinking, as we call it.
There you go.
Go somewhere hot, do something hard, have a few beers, happy days.
I feel like we're a bit of an advert for the army here. Join the army and, you know...
I've done some amazing things, you know. I've also walked through the Grand Canyon from one side to the other. So already getting the notice board, wanted 10 volunteers this time. Go to Las Vegas, 3 weeks. Like, yeah, I'll have a bit of that.
Where do you sign up?
Yeah, so although you also know Ireland, Kosovo for me, 2 tours of Iraq, then Afghan as we'll come on to. There is opportunities to go and do some amazing things as well in the army. You know, 5 years living in Germany, I did about 2 years in Canada. So I've done some amazing things in the armed forces. But I think I joined at a time in like 1997. I joined when conflict was just about starting to happen. But then there's also possibilities to go and do adventure training as well. Where I think if some of the guys joined maybe like 2003, 2004, 2005, it was just like Iraq, and that was kind of it, and not much opportunity to go and do some adventure training. So I think people who maybe joined at 16, joined that period, went straight to Afghan, lost both the legs, maybe look back in the army and think, this is not what I expected was going to happen.
So you're sitting here and talking, Andy, with amazing positivity about the army. Yeah, obviously we know what happened to you, and yet you've still got this like you talk about it, like you absolutely love it, and I could imagine maybe another person sitting here and going, oh my God, look what happened to me because of the army now.
Yeah, I think it's because I have had that opportunity to go and do some amazing things, and I also knew what path I was possibly taking before I joined the army. These opportunities wouldn't have become available to me. I maybe could have ended up on the wrong side of the tracks, you know, going down that path and not lived the life that I've had. And, you know, hand on heart for me, if you said to me tomorrow, Andy, can you have your legs back, or you go back to the same life that you had before, or stage you are now, 100% I'll stay where I am now. People that they meet, the things that I'm doing, 2 young kids that can be home and put them in bed every night and read them a story, you know, life's good. At the moment, you know, maybe years to come, PTSD might happen with me, or it's not happened so far. Get myself busy and motivated, but it may creep up one day, mightn't it? I don't know what's around the corner, but at the moment, life's amazing, and I'm just enjoying every day and doing things like this. What we're doing now, would I have been doing that if I'd not been?
Well, we could just be talking about pork pies and sausages or something else. Let's talk about that day.
Yeah.
Are you okay to talk about that? So take me back. It was October the 13th.
Yeah, October the 13th.
2009.
So coming up to 11 years this year, yeah. So I've been out there in Afghan, me and my 7 guys in the Yorkshire Regiment were attached to the Fusiliers. We went out there with what's called BCRs, so battlefield casualty replacements, so we knew we were stepping into a dangerous environment. And on the 13th of October, I got tasked to run a routine foot patrol, 4:30 in the morning. I was going to be the lead section with 2 sections in reserve. So we set off at 4:30. It started to get a bit cool. It was October, so it was probably 17, 18 degrees, something like that. We've been going for about 10 minutes or so. And a young guy in front of me, Jamie Hasty, my Valon guy with metal detector. He's obviously sweeping from left to right as we're going up the path. He said, Andy, there's some barbed wire here, pal. He said, we're going to have to go in a different direction. I said, no worries, Jamie, take a knee, look out to your front. Told the rest of the guys, kneel down, get some water on board, buddy system. You know what we were doing. And I looked across to the right hand side, and there was 3 tracks leading down towards this village. Now 2 of the tracks had no markings on whatsoever. The 3rd track had some footprints on it, some cattle markings, and even some motorbike tracks as well. So I looked at my watch, and it was about 4 to 5 in the morning. Now I know that the local population go to prayers about 5 in the morning, so 4:45, 20 to 5 people generally start walking about. Night time in October, it gets quite windy, so the tracks generally get blown over. So I thought that track must have been used in the last 10-15 minutes or so. So I said, right Jamie, we're going to go down that track there, pal, on the right hand side. She said, yeah, no worries. So he started getting his kit on, see him standing up, turn around, said, right boy, get your kit on, follow me. I looked forward, could see Jamie going forward with his metal detector, could see his footprints in the sand as we went forward. So I started walking behind Jamie, turning around, looking where I was going, see what the boys were doing, Went about 2 or 3 metres forward, and then stepped on the IED device. So the next thing then I was aware of, I lay on the floor, big dust cloud all around me. I couldn't hear anything. All my mouth was full of dust and dirt. It was quite strange because I wasn't in any pain. I felt like I still numbness from my body. So like a big pot forward just ran into me, but I knew something violent had happened to me. So I looked down, couldn't see my legs at that stage. Straight away I started thinking self-help, I need some morphine, some tourniquets. So I looked across this right arm, it was like twisted behind my back. Looked across this hand, and that finger was hanging off, so I just made a fist.
Oh, sorry, I'm just I hadn't noticed your hand before.
And then I knew then I couldn't get to my first aid kit myself, so I started shouting as loud as I possibly could for the medic. Quite surreal because I couldn't hear myself shouting, but I knew I was shouting as loud as I could. Luckily, young Jamie got blown forward in the blast, and he took some shrapnel to his back and his behind. But he started crawling back towards me, started giving some morphine, put some tourniquet on my limbs, and one of the other guys come back from the rear of the section. And I could see him speaking to me, but I couldn't hear what he was saying, just see his mouth moving. But I knew the guys were there then, and I knew the guys would do the job that they're trained to do, so I just closed my eyes and kind of drifted in and out of consciousness.
And you were you in pain? Could you remember if you were in pain?
I wasn't in pain. No, I think it was just like the adrenaline obviously kicked in and they gave me the morphine. Within, probably within less than 30 seconds, they were whacking morphine into me. So I don't really remember being in any pain. I was probably screaming out, but I think your mind kind of maybe blocks that out. I think other guys I've spoken to who've been injured in similar circumstances don't really speak about screaming out in pain. I think your mind just kind of blocks that out, kind of thing. And then decided rather than get a helicopter into our location, we were only about 3 k's away from the main camp. So they brought a shackle vehicle in, got me onto the back of the stretcher, took me back to our fob, and then from there they got a helicopter back to Camp Bastion.
At any point when you were conscious, did you think you were going to die, or did you think this was it?
Not really, didn't really. No, not that I can recall thinking that. I just thought the guys really, and the guys are going to do the job that they're trained to do, and they'll do what they've got to do and get me back there. I don't think it really crept into my mind. And, no, not that I can recall.
And because
everyone's got different memories, I suppose.
Memories of it. Because Jamie was in front of you. Surely he would have stood on. Would he not have had the first blast? Would he have?
Well, these IEDs, as you say, they're improvised explosive devices. They're not like a man-made landmine what we used to manufacture during the Second World War. You stand on it, that's it, it goes off, or when you take your foot off it, then it goes off. These are like pressure plate IEDs as well, so maybe some of them are manufactured so the first person steps on it, that's a bit of pressure, and the next person steps on it, it's a bit more, and then it goes off. From what I understand of it all, they don't want the first person to stand on the IED, because then you've got a safe path to where that person is, and you drag him backwards, and we're safe. They want the second or third person to cause a bit of confusion between the team of what's going on. But listen, it's irrelevant to me.
Yeah, of course it is. Of course it is.
Jamie went out there with his metal detector, did the best job he possibly could. People say, "Oh, what? He didn't find the IED, so you blame Jamie for what happened?" I'm like, well, no. Jamie probably blamed himself for what happened. I don't blame Jamie at all. What happened? It's happened. That's it. Put that to bed and move on. There's no point dwelling about what's happened, And having spent about 10 days in 3 days in critical care, then moved up to the main ward when I got back to the St. Oaks in Birmingham. I remember listening to other guys talking, and a few of them was blaming the government, blaming the Taliban, blaming the army for the situation they was in. Like I say, young lads who were in the 20s and maybe expected more from the army, expected the army to give them more in life than going straight on tour and losing some limbs. They were blaming somebody else, and I lay there and I thought, ultimately, I joined the army. So ultimately, the responsibility that happened to me lies with myself, and by accepting that responsibility, I think that's what's been able to move forward. Rather than blaming Jamie, that's not going to help me move life forward.
No, I don't think.
It made me bitter and angry and depressed, and Jamie probably feels bad enough. I know he does, because I was
and Jamie was doing his job, right?
Yeah, he was doing his job, and that's it, using his best ability that he's got, and the best equipment that he's got, he was using that. And blaming the army, again, it's not going to make change fundamentally what's happened. It's happened. So let's embrace that really in some ways and move on with it.
I mean, it's amazing that like you sit there and you can say you don't like blame anybody, and obviously you're taking, you've got an amazing attitude. But was there never a point at which you just felt angry at the situation?
Oh yeah, you know, obviously I'm human at the end of the day, aren't I? You know, and I do get frustrated, I do get angry, and like, you know, trying to transfer into the bath for the first time at home and slipped and fell on the floor. You know, you get angry, don't you? And you shout. And little boy now, William, one time was in the garden walking towards his nettles, you know, and I'm thinking he's going to get himself stung on nettles, so I can't just break into a sprint and go and grab him. So I had to shout really loud, and then he stopped, he started crying. Wow. I went and picked him up, brought him in, and I was thinking to myself, what if that would have been a car? What if that would have been something else? You know, I went to my room and lay down and had a little cry for a bit, and I was angry because I couldn't protect my own son. I've been to different countries protecting and doing that job, and then I can't even protect my own son because of the situation that I was in. So I was angry, and I did blame, you know, the Prime Minister sending us over to there and doing this and doing that. But then you sit down and reflect, think, you know what, where's that streamer? Now there's no nettles in my garden. You know, you think, get rid of the problem.
Absolutely, yeah.
That's the thing, you think differently now, you think, get rid of the problem that's going to, or the danger, before it can potentially happen. So you think differently now when you're doing things, and you take more time to do things, because you've got to think of it different. Because you can't blame. I don't think it doesn't help. Well,
it doesn't. It doesn't. But I think it's quite an easy thing for a lot of people to do. Yeah. It's like, it's easier to take that attitude of it's somebody else's fault, rather than actually saying, not that it's anyone's fault, but you're sort of taking responsibility for your own actions and your own choices.
I think we're brought up doing that. You know, we play football at school and someone passes you the ball and you don't receive it, and straight away you go, well, the rubbish pass, mate. Thanks for that. Yeah. Instead of thinking to yourself, maybe I should have ran a bit faster and a bit slower, but you'd be constantly, I think, instantly look to blame.
Completely.
But sometimes you've got to look in the mirror and ask yourself some serious questions.
Absolutely. I think. Yeah. Going back to the day that you woke up and you either, were you told at that point you've lost 2 legs and your right arm, or did you know at that point?
Well, I woke up after 3 days in Cellular Tropical in Birmingham, which is now the QE, you know, an amazing place, amazing people who work there and put us kind of back together. And I woke up in a very dimly lit room. There's like crisp white walls, crisp white sheets on the bed, that distinct smell of like bleach and clean detergent and death that you have in them hospital environments. And as I ran to look, there was a couple of people stood around the bed, and I didn't know where I was or who these people were at first. I started shouting and screaming at these people, and then the doctor come over and reassured me where I was and started explaining to me and the family what had happened. So they said, you know, you lost your right leg below the knee, your left leg above the knee, your right arm above the elbow. And the doctor explained this to, it was my mum, my dad was there, my stepmum, that's why I was probably screaming, and then the girlfriend was on the other side of the bed. And when the doctor explained this to me and the family, I kind of thought, I'm surviving, not a victim. I thought, I'm still here. And unfortunately, 7 guys from my regiment passed away. 2 guys who I was on patrol with in Afghanistan from the Fusiliers passed away, and I thought, I'm still here, ultimately. And you start setting myself some goals and start moving life forward. And people find that quite hard to believe, that I had that instant thing, but for me, looking back on life, you know, at 5 years old, I was in a car crash, broke my leg in 3 places.
I wanted to take you back if you saw any parallels between that and...
Yeah, I broke my wrist twice at school. You know, when I was 11, my mum had a leg amputated, so I grew up with my mum being amputee. I've always been on the back foot. I think I've always had to work hard for what I want to achieve. I've grown up with adversity in my life from a very early age. So for me, this was like another, what's happened now? Another thing that's happened.
Did you ever think you were a warrior in a previous life?
I might have been Hitler. I don't know what.
I tell you look like Gladiator. You've got a Russell Crowe from the Gladiator there going on.
I must be quite bad, I think, if you believe in that kind of thing. No, I don't know, but no, I just think your past, your childhood does nature or nurture is the word to who you are today, doesn't it? And
absolutely.
You know, and having had all these adversity as a young child. It made me a strong person, made me quite resilient.
Yeah.
It made me have to work to get what I want to achieve. You know, it took me 5 years to join the army. You know.
And you didn't give up, and you kept going because you knew you wanted something, and you just kept at it.
So I can't blame the army for what's happened. It took me 5 years to actually get in, and like I say, I went to involved in some things early on in my army career where I could have thought, actually, this is not for me. This I'm going to sign up that paper and I'll be out. But I loved it. I absolutely loved being in the armed forces. You know, I loved the crack and the banter with all the lads. So I was like 33, still single at that stage. I only met Claire about 8 months before I went to Afghan. So I was like riding a motorbike, living in the block, had my own house up north. I was living the dream when I was in the army. You know, it was an amazing time. So I look back with great memories of being in the armed forces, and I don't miss marching around and having to polish your boots and all that. But I miss the lads. I miss the banter and miss the opportunities that the army can give you. So
you've mentioned Claire, and I want to go talk about this a little bit. You just been going out a few months, is that before you're out?
Yeah, so I was over in Canada, and my sister messaged me on Facebook and said, right, I'm working with this girl called Claire who works in a bar together. So it's my birthday in December, so you and Claire are going to organise my 30th birthday party, so you best hook with each other. So I was like, right, yeah, okay. So then we started chatting with Claire about my sister's party for about 10 minutes, and then just started chatting to each other, build that up, come back from Canada, we went on a date, and then just went from there. That was like November 2008, and then I went to Afghan July 2009. So
you really haven't been together that long?
Not long, because I think I went to Kuwait beforehand on some pre-training in Kuwait. I was only coming home at weekends. So all in all, probably actually about 3 months in days that was actually spent together before I went to Afghan for 3 months and then come back to amputee.
Which is probably a big deal for any relationship. Yeah. Let's face it, lockdowns put most relationships in the bag, but then you're faced with you know, your boyfriend, not husband, not fiance, you know, and you're in this position. Did you think she was going to stay with you?
A big ask, isn't it? You know, she was 27 at the time, young woman with her own career moving forward. You know, and I did say to Claire, I had that brutal discussion with her. I said, if you want to walk away, because I won't hold it against you at all. This is going to be life-changing for both of us. And she said, Andy, you're the same person who I've met and who I fell in love with, and we're going to work for this together. And then that was it then, you know, from then on. We just tried to pass on and got through doing things together, and here we are today. We're up to now.
And I'm quite conscious you've been up to a lot more, and I'm dying to delve into this, but we've come to the end of our part 1 of this series of 2 episodes, which I can't wait to hear more about you. But before we end this, I've still got to ask my final question, and that is, if you were to write a message in a bottle for future generations to find, what would that message be?
I think it'd probably be, don't look back and dwell on what's happened, look forward to what you can achieve and crack on.
Andy, I can't wait for us to speak again in part 2. This has been great, and it's been a real honour speaking to you. Thank you.
Sonya. Thank you, it's been great.
Hope you enjoyed the show. Remember, there's a new interview out every Monday, so hit subscribe and like, and you'll get it straight into your inbox. This show is sponsored by the Veterans Channel. The Veterans Channel is an on-demand and free video streaming service. The Veterans Channel gives a voice to servicemen and women, allowing them to share their experience in unique and authentic ways. Watch the Veterans Channel at www.theveteranschannel.com or download the Veterans Lifestyle app to get instant access to all the great content.